The phone screen blurred as my eyes filled with tears. My brother Blake's engagement party was happening right then, streamers, champagne, everyone laughing in the videos flooding Instagram. Everyone except me. When I asked Dad why I hadn't even been invited, he shrugged and said, "It's just a reunion." Just a reunion. My hand shook, my chest burned. But if my family thought they could erase me, they were about to regret it. Because one innocent selfie was all it took to unravel everything they'd been hiding. If you've ever been sidelined, underestimated, or told your feelings didn't matter, hit that like button and subscribe, because this is the story of how I turned one cruel rejection into the sweetest revenge my family never saw coming. My name is Vanessa Carter, and if I had to describe my childhood in one sentence, it would be this: I was the ghost in my own family's story. I wasn't the rebel who caused chaos, I wasn't the golden child who drew applause, I was simply there. The invisible one. If you grew up as the overlooked sibling, you already know the sting. It's subtle, almost polite, the way it crushes you. My brother Blake was the crown jewel, the golden boy who could do no wrong. His name lived on everyone's lips, his photos hung in every frame on the mantle, and his achievements were recited at every family dinner as if they were gospel. Meanwhile, me? If I brought home an art project, Dad would smile vaguely and say, "That's nice, honey. But did you hear Blake got an A in physics?" When I landed my first part-time job at 16, my mom barely looked up before chirping, "Blake was just made captain of the debate team." Every triumph of mine shrank in Blake's shadow, swallowed whole before it could even shine. I told myself I didn't mind. I told myself I was independent, that I didn't need the applause. But the truth? I craved it. Every child craves it. Every child wants to be seen. By the time I hit my 20s, the imbalance had hardened into routine. Family gatherings revolved around Blake. Vacations were planned around his schedule. When he brought home Stephanie, his girlfriend, my parents treated her like a daughter they'd been waiting for all their lives. I tried to connect with her, took her shopping, listened to her vent about her job, but even then, she gravitated toward Blake's world. She was another extension of his glow, another reminder that I was orbiting a planet I'd never get to land on. So when I heard he'd gotten engaged, a small part of me still felt hopeful. Silly, right? You'd think I'd know better by now. But there I was, standing in my bedroom with a pale silver dress draped across my bed, tiny embroidered flowers catching the light, imagining what it might feel like to actually belong. This was my brother's engagement. Surely, this time I'd be part of the celebration. I'm his sister. They couldn't possibly erase me from this moment. The first cracks appeared when I noticed silence. No invitation in the mail. No text, no call. Weeks passed, and I convinced myself it was a mix-up. Maybe they were finalizing the date. Maybe my invite had gotten lost. My heart ached with a desperate kind of optimism, the kind that keeps you holding your breath long after the air's gone stale. Then one Friday night, I unlocked my phone and there it was, Instagram flooded with pictures. My cousin Kayla clinking glasses under strings of fairy lights. My mom dancing with Stephanie, their smiles wide enough to split the earth. My dad, center stage, his arm wrapped proudly around Blake. Everyone was there. Everyone but me. The room tilted. My stomach dropped. I could hear my pulse in my ears as I scrolled through photo after photo, the captions gushing, "The perfect night. Congrats Blake and Steph. Family is everything. Family is everything." I tried to call my mom first, but she didn't answer. My chest squeezed tighter with each ignored ring. Finally, I called Dad. He picked up, his voice casual, like he hadn't just cut me out of the most important event in my brother's life. Why wasn't I invited? My voice shook, thin as glass. There was a pause, and then his dismissive sigh. "It's just a reunion, Vanessa. Don't make a big deal out of it." For a moment I thought I'd misheard him. Just a reunion? Dad, it's Blake's engagement party. I'm his sister. He actually chuckled, like I was being dramatic. You overthink everything. It's not personal. Not personal. The words landed like a blade, slicing clean through whatever scraps of dignity I had left. My throat closed, my eyes burned. Not personal? I whispered. You excluded me from my own brother's engagement. How is that not personal? But he didn't answer. Just a distracted, "We'll talk later," before hanging up. I stood frozen in my apartment, phone still pressed to my ear long after the line had gone dead. My reflection in the dark window looked like a stranger. My shoulders hunched, my face pale, eyes hollowed out by something deeper than anger. This wasn't just exclusion. This was erasure. They hadn't forgotten me, they had chosen to erase me. That night, I didn't sleep. The silver dress lay crumpled on my bed, mocking me with every wrinkle. I kept staring at the ceiling, my chest burning with questions that had no answers. Was I really so forgettable? So disposable? Had my existence become such an afterthought that my presence wasn't even worth a chair at the table? By morning, the questions curdled into something heavier. It wasn't just about the party, it was about every dismissal, every shrug, every time I had been told to quiet down, to stop being so sensitive, to stop making things about me. My entire life had been a series of subtle messages that I was less. That Blake mattered, and I didn't. But as much as it hurt, a tiny ember of defiance sparked in my chest. Because here's the thing about being erased, once you realize it, once you finally name the wound, you can't unknow it. And if they thought I'd keep swallowing it forever, they were wrong. I didn't know how, not yet, but I promised myself one thing: I was going to make them regret ever thinking I was invisible. The next few days felt like drowning in slow motion. Every time I opened my phone, there was another photo, another video clip from the engagement party I had been deliberately cut out of. Blake and Stephanie feeding each other cake, the crowd cheering like it was the royal wedding. My mother holding Stephanie's hand as if she'd been her daughter all along. My dad raising a champagne glass, his grin stretching ear to ear. And the captions. Family forever. So grateful for nights like this. All of us together. All of us together. I wanted to scream. I turned my phone face down on the counter, but it didn't help. My mind still played the images on a loop. Me, sitting alone in my apartment, while my entire family danced under fairy lights pretending I didn't exist. The silence in my phone, no text, no call, nothing, while they posted proof of the opposite, that I was the only one excluded. At work, I couldn't focus. Numbers blurred on the spreadsheets, words tangled in emails. My boss asked if I was okay, and I smiled too brightly, lied through my teeth. But the truth was that my insides felt hollow, like something essential had been scooped out. That night, I curled up on the couch in the dark, silver dress still hanging limp in my closet. It felt like a cruel relic from another timeline, one where I'd been treated like family. My chest ached. My eyes burned. I replayed Dad's voice over and over in my head. It's just a reunion. Don't make a big deal out of it. The words kept morphing into new shapes, sharper, meaner. You're not important. You don't matter. Stop thinking you deserve a place here. I wanted to shake them off, but they clung to me. I felt smaller with every breath, like I was shrinking out of my own life. By the third night, anger started to seep through the cracks of my grief. It was subtle at first, a sharp edge in my chest when I scrolled through another set of party photos, a pulse in my jaw as I clenched my teeth. But then, one morning, it flared. I was brushing my hair when I caught my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were red, my shoulders hunched, my whole body sagging under the weight of rejection. And suddenly, something in me snapped. Why was I letting them do this to me? Why was I letting their choice dictate how I felt about myself? The thought hit me like a bolt of electricity. They had chosen to erase me, yes. But I didn't have to stay erased. That ember of defiance that had sparked the night Dad dismissed me grew hotter. For once, I didn't feel like crying, I felt like fighting. Not by screaming or begging for recognition. That had never worked. No, this time would be different. This time, I'd show them without saying a word. But how? I paced my apartment, ideas racing through my head. Confronting them directly would only give them another chance to dismiss me. Ignoring them would let them win. What I needed was something quieter, sharper. Something they wouldn't see coming. And then, the idea came. It happened when I was scrolling aimlessly through my camera roll, trying to distract myself. I landed on an old photo from a ski trip a coworker had convinced me to join the year before. There I was, cheeks flushed from the cold, snow sparkling behind me. I remembered how free I had felt that day, rushing down the slopes, laughing until my lungs hurt. The memory hit me with a jolt. That's it, I thought. That's how I'll remind them. I don't need their table, their party, their fairy lights. I'll make my own. The plan grew roots instantly. I booked a room at a small ski lodge 2 hours north. The price made me wince. I wasn't exactly rolling in extra cash, but the thought of sitting at home, stewing in bitterness, felt worse. I told myself it was an investment. Not just in revenge, but in myself. The morning I left, the air felt different. Crisp, clean, alive. I tossed my bag into the car, cranked up the radio, and drove with the windows cracked just enough to let the winter breeze sting my face. Every mile between me and my family felt like oxygen filling my lungs. When I reached the lodge, the mountains towered in the distance, sharp white peaks piercing the sky. The sun shimmered off the snow, so bright it almost hurt to look. I checked in, dropped my bag, and suited up in rented gear that made me feel like a kid again: oversized jacket, clunky boots, goggles that pinched my nose. I wasn't a great skier, but that didn't matter. I tumbled down the beginner slope, fell on my backside, laughed out loud as strangers cheered me on. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. Free. Alive. And then, at the bottom of the slope, I pulled out my phone. The sun was setting behind the mountain, painting the snow in gold and pink. My cheeks were flushed, my smile wide and unforced. I snapped the photo, goggles pushed up, grin big enough to burn through the screen. I looked at it and knew. This was the one. I opened Instagram, the same platform that had tormented me with all their party photos, and typed a caption. Sometimes the best parties are the ones you throw for yourself. I hit post. My heart pounded as I slid the phone back into my pocket. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't angry. It was simple, almost playful. But underneath, it carried the weight of every wound they'd given me. It was my way of saying, you didn't break me. I don't need your invitation to be whole. As I walked back toward the lodge, snow crunching under my boots, I felt the ember inside me blaze into a flame. I didn't know what would come of that post yet. But I knew one thing for certain: I wasn't invisible anymore. When I woke up the next morning at the ski lodge, the smell of fresh coffee drifted through the hallways, mingling with the bite of cold air that slipped in from the mountains. My legs ached from the slopes, but it was the good kind of ache, the kind that reminded me I was alive, moving, doing something for myself. I reached for my phone, not expecting much. But the screen was already lit up with notifications. Dozens of likes. A flood of comments. Direct messages pinging faster than I could read them. I frowned, thumb swiping up. Wait, weren't you at the engagement party? One cousin wrote. Why didn't I see you in any photos? Another messaged. My aunt had left a public comment right under the photo. Looks beautiful, Vanessa. But I thought the whole family was together this weekend? The words sent a strange thrill down my spine. They'd noticed. The very thing my dad had brushed off, it's just a reunion, was suddenly being questioned by everyone else. I hesitated, debating whether to respond, but the truth itched at my tongue. My entire life I'd been quiet, shrinking, polite. But not anymore. So when another cousin DM'd me, why weren't you there? Blake said you were busy. I typed the truth with steady fingers. I wasn't invited. I hit send before I could overthink it. That was the spark. By noon, the comment section on my selfie had turned into a family debate. People tagging each other, demanding answers. Screenshots were flying back and forth in group chats I wasn't even part of. And then came the real bomb. Stephanie's maid of honor messaged me privately. "Vanessa, I'm so sorry to ask this, but Blake told everyone you couldn't make it. He said you had other plans. Is that true?" My chest tightened. My brother hadn't just excluded me, he had lied to cover it up. He hadn't been ashamed of cutting me out, he had been ashamed of people finding out he'd cut me out. I stared at her message for a long time, rage and vindication swirling together until my hands shook. Finally, I typed back. "No. I wasn't invited at all." She saw it instantly. I could almost picture her expression, shock, maybe disgust. And I knew what would happen next. She'd tell Stephanie. She'd tell their friends. The lie was out. By the time I drove home that evening, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Cousins siding with me. Aunts demanding explanations. Even Grandma had left a comment under the photo, just one line that cut sharper than any blade. Why was my granddaughter left out? That comment sat there like a stone in the middle of a river, impossible to ignore. My dad and mom had been silent so far, but I knew they saw it. They were always glued to their phones, always curating Blake's perfect image. Now that image had cracks running through it. Blake finally called that night. His voice was tight, frantic. "Why would you post that? Do you know how this looks?" I let the silence stretch, enjoying the way his panic filled the space. "You lied, Blake," I said finally. "You told everyone I couldn't come when you never invited me at all." "That's not the point," he started, but I cut him off. "No, that's exactly the point. You erased me and then made up a story so no one would notice. And now? They noticed." He cursed under his breath, muttering about damage control, about how I was making drama and ruining things for him and Steph. But all I heard was fear. His perfect facade was slipping, and he couldn't stand it. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: power. For once, I wasn't the forgotten one, the background extra in the Carter family narrative. For once, they were the ones scrambling, trying to explain themselves. All because I'd stopped being silent. And the best part? I hadn't had to lie, manipulate, or scheme. All I'd done was tell the truth. That truth was spreading like wildfire. The phone rang 2 days later, and when I saw the name flash across the screen, my heart skipped. Grandma. The one person in the family who never sugar-coated, never played favorites. Her voice was firm, almost cold. "Vanessa, tell me the truth. Why weren't you at the party?" I sat straighter on the couch, gripping the phone. "Because I wasn't invited, Grandma. Blake told everyone I was busy, but the truth is, I didn't even know it was happening until I saw the pictures." Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "That boy," she muttered, her tone slicing like glass. "He thinks he can lie to me?" "Grandma," I started, but she cut me off. "No. Enough. I've seen how they dismiss you, how they parade Blake around like he's the second coming. I let it slide because I thought you were strong enough to rise above it. But this?" Her voice cracked just enough for me to hear the fury behind it. "This is cruelty." I didn't know what to say. My throat was tight, my eyes burning. By that evening, the family group chat, which I had never been added to, was on fire. My cousin Kayla forwarded me screenshots. Grandma had written, "I will not tolerate liars in this family. Blake excluded his own sister and then lied about it. He is cut off until he learns respect." Cut off. The word sent shockwaves. Grandma wasn't just angry, she was wielding the one weapon Blake had always counted on: her approval, her money. Everyone knew she held the family's financial strings. Within hours, the whisper spread. Aunts who had once worshipped Blake started questioning him. Uncles called my dad, demanding answers. Even Stephanie's parents, who had been glowing in all those engagement photos, pulled back. If he could lie about something as small as inviting his sister, what else could he lie about? Blake tried calling me again, but this time I didn't pick up. I didn't need to. His perfect mask was crumbling without me lifting another finger. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the background character. I felt like the story itself. One ski selfie. That's all it had taken to shatter years of silence, to turn their dismissal into chaos. My family had erased me, but in trying to protect their golden boy, they had handed me the sharpest weapon of all, the truth. And I had finally used it. Weeks later, the dust hadn't settled. If anything, the cracks in Blake's image had widened into chasms. He'd been Grandma's favorite once. She bragged about him at church, praised him at every dinner table, slipped envelopes of money into his hand with a smile. But after she declared him cut off, the shift was brutal. Cousins who once idolized him avoided his calls. Aunts who used to gush about Blake that suddenly had nothing to say. Even Stephanie grew colder, her social media posts losing their sparkle. I didn't need inside information to know the engagement was on rocky ground. She had wanted a man with family standing, with respect, with stability. But Blake's lies had exposed him as selfish, manipulative, and worst of all, disloyal to his own blood. One night, as I was folding laundry, my phone buzzed again. His name. I considered ignoring it, but curiosity tugged. I answered. His voice was ragged, desperate. Vanessa, please. Can you talk to Grandma? Can you fix this? I laughed, low and disbelieving. You think I can fix your mess? You don't understand, he rushed on. She froze my account. She told Dad I embarrassed the family. Steph's parents are furious. I cut him off. Blake, do you hear yourself? You're not sorry for what you did to me. You're sorry because you lost money, approval, comfort. You're not calling because you care about me, you're calling because you care about yourself. He went silent. For the first time in my life, Blake had no comeback. Here's the truth, I said, my voice steady. You excluded me because you thought I didn't matter. You lied about me because you thought no one would notice. But they noticed. And now you're the one who doesn't matter. The line went dead after that. He didn't call again. For the first time in years, I felt free. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about justice. About finally being seen. That one selfie, taken on a mountain where I had finally felt alive, had exposed years of imbalance in my family. It had forced everyone to face the truth they'd ignored, that their golden boy was only shiny because they dimmed everyone else around him. The irony wasn't lost on me. They had erased me from a party, but in doing so, they had erased Blake's pedestal. A week later, Grandma invited me to lunch. Just me, no one else. She sat across from me at the cafe, her hands folded over her cane, eyes sharp as ever. You're stronger than they gave you credit for, she said simply. My throat tightened, but I smiled. I just told the truth. Sometimes, she said, sipping her tea, that's the sharpest weapon of all. I walked away from that lunch lighter than I'd felt in years. The silver dress still hung in my closet, but now it wasn't a symbol of rejection, it was a reminder. A reminder that I didn't need an invitation to prove my worth. That the quiet girl in the corner could shatter the room with one well-placed word, or in this case, one well-placed picture. And when I think back on it now, I realize that Dad was half right. It was just a reunion. But the family that reunited afterward wasn't the same. This time, I wasn't invisible. It's funny, isn't it? My family thought I was disposable, that leaving me out wouldn't matter. But the thing about truth is, it doesn't stay buried. One picture, one caption, and the lies unraveled. Sometimes revenge isn't fire or fury, it's a mirror. And when you finally hold it up, people are forced to see themselves for what they really are. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and subscribe for more tales where karma comes knocking. And I want to hear from you, have you ever been left out of something you deserve to be part of? Drop your story in the comments below. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply knowing you're not alone.